The ship was big. It was the biggest thing Lieutenant Hana had ever seen in her life. She stood at the docking bay of the space station and looked at the Valkyrie warship through the window. It was dark, gray, and shaped like a giant blade cutting through the stars. She took a deep breath and checked her bag one more time. "You ready?" asked Captain Day from behind her. Hana turned around and nodded. "Yes, sir. I am ready." Captain Day was an old man with gray hair and tired eyes. He had worked with aliens for 30 years. He knew things that young officers like Hana could only dream of learning. He put his hand on her shoulder and gave her a small smile. "The Valkyrie are not easy," he said. "They are proud. They are strong. They do not trust easily. But you are good at your job. You will do fine." Hana smiled back, but inside her stomach was turning. She was a cultural liaison officer. Her job was to live with the Valkyrie for 6 months and learn their ways. She would teach them about humans, and they would teach her about themselves. It sounded simple when she read it in the mission file. But now, looking at that massive ship, nothing felt simple anymore. The docking doors opened with a loud hiss. Cold air rushed in from the other side. Hana picked up her bag and walked forward. Her boots made soft sounds on the metal floor. She did not look back. The inside of the Valkyrie ship was dark. The lights were dim and blue. The walls were made of black metal with strange symbols carved into them. Hana could not read the symbols, but she knew they were important. Everything on a Valkyrie ship had meaning. 2 Valkyrie soldiers waited for her at the end of the hallway. They were tall, much taller than any human. Their skin was pale gray, and their eyes were large and golden. They had no hair on their heads, but they had ridges that ran from their foreheads to the back of their skulls. They wore black armor that covered their entire bodies. "Human," one of them said. His voice was deep and cold. "Follow." Hana followed. She did not speak. She knew that Valkyrie did not like small talk. They said what needed to be said and nothing more. She respected that, even if it made her feel uncomfortable. They walked through many hallways. Hana tried to remember the path, but it was too confusing. Every hallway looked the same. She would need time to learn her way around this ship. Finally, they stopped in front of a large door. One of the soldiers pressed his hand against a panel on the wall, and the door slid open. Inside was a room with a long table and many chairs. At the head of the table sat a Valkyrie officer. He was different from the soldiers. His armor was white with golden lines. His eyes were sharper, colder. He looked at Hana like she was an insect. "Commander Kiro," one of the soldiers said, "the human has arrived." Commander Kiro did not stand up. He did not smile. He just stared at Hana for a long moment. Then he spoke. "So, you are the one they sent." Hana nodded. "Yes, Commander. I am Lieutenant Hana. I am here as a cultural liaison officer. I hope we can work together well." "We?" Kiro made a sound that might have been a laugh. It was hard to tell. "Work together. Yes. That is what the treaty says. But let me be clear. Human. You are a guest on my ship. Nothing more. You will follow our rules. You will not interfere with our ways. And you will stay away from the cubs." Hana blinked. "The cubs, sir?" "The young ones," Kiro said. "The soldiers in training. They are not to be disturbed by outsiders. They are learning the ways of war. Your human ideas have no place in their education. Do you understand?" Hana understood. She did not like it, but she understood. "Yes, Commander. I understand." Kiro stood up. He was even taller than she had thought. He walked around the table and stopped in front of her. He looked down at her with those cold, golden eyes. "Humans are strange creatures," he said. "You are weak. You are small. Yet somehow, you have survived. Somehow, you have built ships and weapons and joined the galactic community. I do not understand how. But I will be watching you. Lieutenant Hana, I will be watching you very closely." He walked past her and out of the room. The 2 soldiers followed him. Hana was left alone in the dark room with the long table and the empty chairs. She let out a breath she did not know she was holding. Her hands were shaking. She had trained for this. She had studied the Valkyrie for years. But nothing could have prepared her for the feeling of being so small, so unwanted. A young Valkyrie entered the room. This one was shorter than the soldiers. Her skin was lighter gray, and her eyes were softer. She wore a simple gray uniform instead of armor. "Lieutenant Hana," she said. Her voice was quiet and careful. "I am Sora. I will show you to your room." "I am Sora." Hana smiled at her. "Thank you, Sora. I appreciate it." Sora looked surprised by the smile. She did not return it, but her expression softened just a little. "Please follow me." They walked through more hallways. Sora moved quickly, and Hana had to almost jog to keep up. But she did not complain. She was too busy looking at everything around her. They passed a large window, and Hana stopped. Through the window, she could see a training room. Inside, a group of young Valkyrie were practicing combat moves. They were small, much smaller than the adults. They moved in perfect formation, punching and kicking at training dummies. "The cubs," Hana whispered. Sora stopped and looked back. Yes. The young warriors. They begin training at age 5. By age 10, they are ready for their first missions. Hana watched the cubs. They were so young, but their faces were serious. There was no joy in their movements, no play, just discipline and duty. One of the cubs looked up. A young male with lighter skin and curious eyes. He saw Hana watching and stopped moving. For a moment, they just looked at each other through the window. Then an instructor shouted, and the cub quickly returned to his training. "Come," Sora said. "We should not stay here." Hana nodded and followed. But she could not stop thinking about that young cub. The way he had looked at her. There had been something in his eyes. Something she recognized. Curiosity. Her room was small but clean. There was a bed, a desk, and a small bathroom. It was not comfortable, but it was enough. Sora showed her how to use the lights and the communication panel. Then, she left without saying goodbye. Hana sat on the bed and looked around. 6 months. She would be here for 6 months. Commander Kiro did not want her here. The soldiers did not trust her. She was alone on an alien ship, surrounded by people who saw her as weak and strange. But she had seen that cub. She had seen the curiosity in his eyes. And she knew that where there was curiosity, there was hope. She would follow Commander Kiro's rules. She would stay away from the cubs. She would be a good guest. But deep inside, she knew that some rules were meant to be broken. 3 weeks passed on the Valkyrie ship. Hana learned the hallways. She learned the meal times. She learned which officers to avoid, and which ones would at least nod at her when she walked by. But she was still alone. The Valkyrie did not talk to her unless they had to. They did not invite her to their gatherings. They did not share their stories or their jokes. Commander Kiro kept his promise. He watched her closely. Whenever she walked through the ship, she could feel eyes on her. Guards followed her from a distance. They never spoke to her, but they were always there. Hana spent most of her time in the observation deck. It was a large room with big windows that looked out into space. She would sit there for hours, watching the stars pass by. It was peaceful. It was the only place on the ship where she did not feel like a prisoner. One night, she was sitting alone in the observation deck when she heard a sound. It was soft, like small feet on metal. She turned around and saw a shadow near the door. The shadow moved, and she saw 2 large golden eyes staring at her from the darkness. "Hello?" Hana said softly. "Who is there?" The shadow did not move. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then, slowly, a small figure stepped into the light. It was a cub. The same one who had looked at her through the training room window. He was young, maybe 7 or 8 in human years. His skin was light gray, and his eyes were full of fear and curiosity. "You are the human," he said. His voice was high and quiet. Hana smiled gently. Yes, I am Hana. What is your name? The cub looked behind him, checking if anyone was watching. Then he looked back at her. Talo. My name is Talo. Hello, Talo. It is nice to meet you. Talo did not come closer. He stayed near the door, ready to run. They say humans are dangerous. They say you have strange powers. Hana laughed softly. Strange powers? No. I do not have any powers. I am just a person. Like you. But you are different. You are small. You have hair on your head. Your eyes are dark. Talo tilted his head. Why do you have hair? I do not know. Humans have always had hair. It keeps our heads warm. I think. Talo seemed to think about this. That is strange. Maybe. But strange is not always bad. Talo looked at her for a long time. Then, very slowly, he walked a few steps closer. What do humans do? On your world? Hana thought about the question. Many things. We work. We learn. We spend time with our families. We play games. Games? Talo's eyes grew wide. What are games? Hana's heart hurt a little. This child did not know what games were. On this ship, cubs learned to fight and follow orders. They did not learn to play. Games are things we do for fun, she said. They are not work. They are not training. They are just fun. Fun. Talo repeated the word like he was tasting it. I do not understand. Hana stood up slowly. She did not want to scare him. Let me show you. Do you see my hands? Talo nodded. Hana put her hands together and then pulled them apart. She made a simple clapping pattern. Clap. Clap. Pause. Clap. Clap. Pause. This is a game, she said. You try to copy what I do. Ready? Talo looked confused, but he was also interested. He brought his hands together and tried to copy her pattern. His timing was wrong at first, but he tried again. And again. On the fourth try, he got it right. I did it, he said. His voice was louder now, excited. Yes, you did. That was very good, Talo. Talo smiled. It was a small smile, shy and uncertain. But it was real. Hana realized that she might be the first person to ever praise him for something that was not fighting. Can you teach me more? Talo asked. Hana hesitated. She remembered Commander Kiro's warning. Stay away from the cubs. Do not interfere. If she was caught teaching this child, there would be trouble. But she looked at Talo's hopeful face, and she could not say no. I can teach you more, she said. But you must promise me something. This must be our secret. No one can know. Can you do that? Talo nodded quickly. I can keep secrets. I am very good at keeping secrets. Good. Then come back tomorrow night. Same time. Same place. Talo smiled again, bigger this time. Then he turned and ran out of the room, his small feet barely making any sound. Hana sat back down and looked out at the stars. She knew she was taking a risk. But something about that child's smile made her feel like it was worth it. The next night, Talo came back. He brought another cub with him, a female named Nira. She was smaller than Talo, with darker gray skin and nervous eyes. She hid behind Talo and watched Hana with suspicion. This is my friend, Talo said. She wanted to see the human too. Hana smiled at Nira. Hello, Nira. I am happy to meet you. Nira did not speak. She just stared. She is shy, Talo explained. But she is very smart. Smarter than me. Hana nodded. That is okay. She does not have to talk. She can just watch. That night, Hana taught them a new game. It was a rhythm game with hand movements. She clapped her hands, then patted her knees, then snapped her fingers. The cubs watched her carefully and tried to copy. Talo was fast and energetic. Nira was slow and careful. But both of them learned. By the end of the night, they were laughing. Quiet laughs, hidden behind their hands, but laughing. Hana had never seen a Velkari laugh before. She did not even know they could. Every night after that, the cubs came to the observation deck. Sometimes it was just Tallow and Nira. Sometimes other cubs joined them. Word spread quietly among the young ones. There was a human who taught strange things. A human who made you feel happy. Hana taught them everything she could think of. She taught them earth songs, simple ones with easy words. She taught them hand signals and secret codes. She taught them how to skip and hop and dance. The cubs loved dancing. They had never moved their bodies just for joy before. Everything they did was always for training, for war. But dancing was different. Dancing was free. She taught them how to make funny faces. She taught them how to play rock, paper, scissors. She taught them how to high five and fist bump. The cubs thought these human greetings were the funniest things in the galaxy. Nira started to talk more. She asked Hana questions about Earth. What did trees look like? What was rain? What were dogs? Hana answered every question with patience. She told stories about her home, about her family, about the blue sky and the green grass. The cubs listened with wide eyes, trying to imagine a world so different from their dark ship. One night, Tallow showed Hana something new. He had been practicing on his own. He jumped into the air, twisted his body, and landed on his feet. It was not a combat move. It was something he had invented himself. I call it the star spin, he said proudly. Hana clapped her hands. That was amazing, Tallow. How did you learn to do that? I watched you dance, he said. And I thought, what if I could dance in the air? So I tried. It took many times, but I did it. Hana felt tears in her eyes. This was what humans called creativity. This was what humans called play. And this young Velkari cub had discovered it all on his own. You are special, Tallow, she said. Never forget that. Tallow smiled. You are special too, Hana. You showed us that there is more than fighting. You showed us that we can be happy. Nira nodded. She walked up to Hana and did something unexpected. She hugged her. It was quick and awkward, but it was a hug. The first hug a Velkari had ever given a human. Hana hugged her back. You both make me happy too, she whispered. The secret sessions continued. Week after week, the cubs learned more and more. They became better at hiding their new skills during the day. They acted serious and obedient during training. But at night, in the observation deck, they were free. Hana knew it could not last forever. She knew that someday, someone would find out. But for now, she did not care. For now, she had found something precious on this cold, dark ship. She had found friends. 2 months had passed since Hana came to the ship. The secret meetings continued every night. More cubs joined. Sometimes there were 10 or 12 of them sitting in the observation deck, learning new games and songs from the human. They called her Teacher Hana now, though only when they were alone. Hana was careful. She always checked the hallways before the sessions. She taught the cubs to listen for footsteps and to scatter if anyone came close. So far, they had not been caught. But she knew their luck would not last forever. One morning, Sora came to Hana's room with a message. Commander Kiro requests your presence in the main hall. There will be a formal inspection of the cubs today. All senior officers and guests must attend. Hana's heart beat faster. A formal inspection? Yes. The cubs will show their combat skills. It is an important event. The commander wants you to see how Velkari warriors are trained. Sora paused. He wants you to understand that Velkari children are not like human children. Hana nodded slowly. I understand. I will be there. She dressed in her best uniform and walked to the main hall. The room was huge, bigger than any other room on the ship. The walls were lined with Velkari flags and weapons. Hundreds of officers sat in rows of seats, their golden eyes fixed on a large open space in the center. Commander Kiro sat on a raised platform at the front. His white armor shined under the lights. He saw Hana enter and nodded once. She nodded back and took her seat in the guest section. The inspection began. One by one, the cubs came out to show their skills. They performed combat moves with perfect precision. They fought against training robots. They threw weapons at targets. Every move was exact. Every face was serious. The officers watched in silence, sometimes nodding with approval. Hana watched too, but she felt something different. She felt sad. These children were so skilled, so disciplined, but there was no life in their eyes. They moved like machines, not like children. Then Talo walked into the center. Hana sat up straight. Her heart was pounding. Talo stood tall, his small body straight and serious. He looked at Commander Kiro and waited for the signal to begin. Kiro raised his hand. Begin. Talo started his routine. Punch. Kick. Block. Turn. His movements were sharp and strong. The officers nodded. This was good technique. This was proper Velkari training. Then something changed. Talo finished a kick, and instead of returning to his stance, he jumped. Not a combat jump. Something different. His body twisted in the air. His arms spread wide. He spun once, twice, and landed softly on his feet. It was the star spin, the move he had invented himself. The room went silent. Talo looked at Commander Kiro. His face was calm, but Hana could see the fear in his eyes. He knew he had done something wrong, but he could not stop himself. He had spent so many nights practicing. He wanted to show what he could do. What was that? Kiro's voice was cold and sharp. Talo did not answer. He stood frozen in the center of the room. Before anyone could speak, Nira ran out from the line of waiting cubs. She stood next to Talo and faced the commander. Then she did something even more shocking. She started to move. Not combat moves, dance moves. The same moves Hana had taught her weeks ago. Her small body swayed left and right. Her arms flowed like water. Her feet stepped in a pattern that no Velkari had ever seen before. It was strange and beautiful and completely wrong for this place. More cubs joined them. One by one, they left their positions and came to the center. They formed a group around Talo and Nira. And then, together, they started to perform. They clapped their hands in rhythm. They patted their knees. They snapped their fingers. They jumped and spun and moved in ways that had nothing to do with fighting. They were dancing. They were playing. Right in front of the entire Velkari command. The officers were frozen in shock. Some of their mouths hung open. Some gripped their seats so hard their knuckles turned white. No one knew what to do. This had never happened before, not in the entire history of the Velkari military. Commander Kiro stood up slowly. His face had turned pale. His golden eyes were wide with disbelief. He stared at the cubs, like he was seeing aliens for the first time. "Stop," he said. His voice was quiet, but it echoed through the silent hall. The cubs stopped. They stood in the center, breathing hard, their eyes looking down at the floor. They knew they were in trouble. Big trouble. Kiro walked down from the platform. His boots made loud sounds on the floor. Each step felt like thunder. He stopped in front of Talo and looked down at him. "What is this?" Kiro asked. "What did you just do?" Talo swallowed hard. I was showing a new move, Commander." "A new move?" "That was not a move. That was not fighting. That was—" Kiro could not find the words. He turned to look at the other cubs. "All of you. What was that?" No one answered. The cubs kept their eyes on the floor. Kiro turned to his officers. "Did any of you teach them this?" The officers shook their heads. They looked just as confused as him. "This is impossible," Kiro said. "Cubs do not invent new movements. They learn what we teach them. They follow orders. They do not dance." He said the word like it was poison. Hana sat very still in her seat. Her face showed nothing. But inside, she was terrified. She knew what was happening. The cubs had wanted to show her their new skills. They had wanted to make her proud. They did not understand that they were supposed to hide everything, but they had only shown these things to her. They had never performed in front of anyone else. This was their way of saying thank you. Their way of honoring her, and now everything was falling apart. Kiro turned to his second-in-command, a tall officer named Baro. Find out who did this. Someone taught them these things. Someone broke the rules. I want answers. Baro nodded. Yes, Commander. We will investigate. Kiro looked back at the cubs. All of you will return to your quarters. You will not train. You will not speak to anyone. You will wait until we decide what to do with you. The cubs nodded and walked away in silence. Talo was the last to leave. Before he went, he looked across the room. His eyes found Hana. There was an apology in his gaze. An apology, and something else. Pride. He was proud of what he had done. Even if he was in trouble, even if he would be punished, he was proud. Hana felt tears forming in her eyes, but she did not let them fall. She kept her face calm. She could not show any emotion. Not here, not now. Commander Kiro returned to his platform. He addressed the officers. This inspection is over. We will meet again tomorrow to discuss what happened. Everyone is dismissed. The officers stood and began to leave. Hana stood too and walked toward the door. Her legs felt weak. Her hands were shaking. She felt someone watching her. She turned and saw Kiro staring at her. His eyes were narrow and cold. He did not say anything, but his message was clear. He suspected her. He could not prove it yet, but he suspected her. Hana walked back to her room and closed the door behind her. She sat on her bed and finally let herself breathe. Her whole body was trembling. The cubs had shown their new moves. They had shown them to the whole ship. But in their hearts, they had shown them to her. Only her. And now the commander was looking for answers. Hana looked out her small window at the stars. She did not know what would happen next. She did not know if she would be sent home, or locked up, or worse. But she knew one thing for certain. She would not betray those cubs, no matter what happened. No matter what Commander Kiro did, she would protect her friends until the end. The next morning, the ship felt different. The air was heavy. The hallways were quiet. Everyone was waiting for something to happen. Commander Kiro had not slept. He had spent the whole night thinking about what he saw. The cubs. His cubs. The future warriors of the Velkari Empire. Had danced in front of everyone. They had performed strange movements that no one had taught them. They had broken every rule of discipline and tradition. It was impossible. And yet it had happened. Kiro sat in his command room with his senior officers. Baro stood at his side, holding a data pad with notes. The other officers sat in chairs around the table, their faces serious and worried. Report, Kiro said. Baro cleared his throat. Commander, we have questioned all training instructors. None of them taught the cubs these movements. None of them even know what these movements are. The instructors are just as confused as we are. What about the other crew members? The guards? The maintenance workers? We questioned them too. No one knows anything. Kiro slammed his fist on the table. The sound echoed through the room. Someone must know. These things did not come from nowhere. Someone taught them. Someone showed them. I want to know who. The officers looked at each other. No one spoke. Finally, an older officer named Duri raised his hand. Commander, there is one possibility we have not discussed. Speak. Duri looked uncomfortable. The human. Lieutenant Hana. She has been on the ship for 2 months. She has access to most areas. And these movements, they looked strange. Foreign. Not Velkari. Kiro's eyes narrowed. You think the human taught them? I do not know, Commander. But she is the only outsider on this ship, and these skills appeared after she arrived. It could be a coincidence. Or it could be something more. Kiro was silent for a long moment. He had suspected the human from the beginning. He had watched her. He had seen nothing unusual. She followed the rules. She stayed in her room, or the observation deck. She did not talk to the cubs, but maybe he had missed something. Maybe she had been more clever than he thought. Bring her to me, Kiro said. Now, two guards went to Hana's room. They knocked on the door and told her the commander wanted to see her. Hana followed them without protest. She had been expecting this. She had been waiting all night for this moment. The walk to the command room was long. Hana kept her face calm and her breathing steady. She knew what was coming. She knew she had to be strong. The guards opened the door, and Hana walked in. Commander Kiro sat at the head of the table. All the senior officers were watching her. Their golden eyes were cold and suspicious. "Lieutenant Hana," Kiro said, "thank you for joining us." "Of course, Commander. How can I help?" Kiro stood up and walked around the table. He stopped a few feet in front of her. He was so tall that Hana had to look up to meet his eyes. "Yesterday, during the inspection, my cubs performed strange movements. Movements that no Velkari has ever seen before. Movements that have nothing to do with combat or training." He paused. "Do you know anything about this?" Hana's heart was beating fast, but her voice was steady. "I was there, Commander. I saw what happened. Like everyone else, I was surprised." "Surprised," Kiro repeated. "Just surprised?" "Yes, Commander." Kiro studied her face. He was looking for any sign of lying, any twitch, any blink, any small movement that would give her away. "Lieutenant Hana, I will ask you directly. Did you teach those cubs?" Hana held his gaze. She did not look away. "Commander, you told me to stay away from the cubs. I followed your orders. I have not interfered with their training. It was not a lie." "Not exactly." She had not interfered with their training. She had not taught them fighting moves. She had only taught them games and dances. In her mind, that was different. Kiro did not seem satisfied. He turned to Baro. "Has the human been seen near the training areas? Near the cubs' quarters?" Baro checked his datapad. "No, Commander. Our records show that Lieutenant Hana has stayed in approved areas only. Her room, the meal hall, and the observation deck. She has not visited any restricted areas." "The observation deck." Hana kept her face calm, but inside, she was worried. "If they checked the observation deck cameras, check the observation deck recordings," Kiro ordered. "All of them, from the past 2 months." Hana's heart sank. The cameras. She had forgotten about the cameras. She had been so careful about everything else. But she had not thought about the cameras. Baro nodded. "Yes, Commander. It will take some time to review all the footage. I do not care how long it takes. Find out what happened in that room." Kiro turned back to Hana. "You will wait here until we have our answers. If you are innocent, you have nothing to worry about. If you are not," he did not finish the sentence. He did not need to. Hana was taken to a small room next to the command center. It was not a prison cell, but it felt like one. There was a chair and a table and nothing else. A guard stood outside the door. She sat down and waited. There was nothing else she could do. Hours passed. Hana did not know how many. She tried to stay calm. She tried to think of what she would say when they found the footage. She could not lie anymore. They would see everything. They would see her teaching the cubs. They would see the games and the dances and the laughter. The door opened. Commander Kiro walked in alone. His face was unreadable. He sat down across from her. For a long moment, he said nothing. He just looked at her. "We found the recordings," he finally said. Hana nodded. "I thought you would. I saw everything. The games, the songs, the dancing. I saw my cubs laughing. Laughing, Lieutenant. Do you understand how strange that is? Velkari cubs do not laugh. They train. They obey. They prepare for war. They do not laugh." "I understand, Commander. Do you?" Kiro leaned forward. "Do you understand what you have done? You have changed them. You have put ideas in their heads that do not belong there. You have made them soft." Hana took a deep breath. This was the moment. This was where she had to speak. "Commander, may I say something?" Kiro waved his hand. "Speak. I did not make them soft. I showed them something different. Something that humans know. We call it play. It is not weakness. It is not a distraction from training. It is how we learn to be creative. It is how we learn to solve problems in new ways. It is how we become more than just soldiers. Kiro's eyes were hard. The Velkari do not need creativity. We have discipline. We have tradition. We have rules. And those things are valuable, Hana said. But rules alone do not win wars. Discipline alone does not inspire loyalty. Your cubs follow orders because they have to. But what if they followed because they wanted to? What if they fought not just because it was their duty, but because they had something to fight for? Like what? Like joy. Like friendship. Like the feeling that their life has meaning beyond just surviving. Kiro was silent. His face was still cold, but something in his eyes had changed. He was thinking, "You believe this?" he asked. "You believe that games and laughter make better warriors? I believe they make better people. And better people find better reasons to fight." Kiro stood up slowly. He walked to the door and stopped. Without turning around, he spoke. "I have not decided what to do with you yet. You broke my rules. You went against my orders. By Velkari law, I could send you back to your people in disgrace. Or worse." He paused. "But I saw something in those recordings, something I did not expect. My cubs were happy. Truly happy. I have commanded thousands of soldiers. I have won many battles, but I have never seen Velkari children look the way they looked in that room." He turned to face her. "Who taught you these things, Lieutenant Hana? Who taught you these tricks?" Hana smiled softly. "No one taught me, Commander. I grew up with them. Every human child plays games. Every human child laughs. It is as natural to us as breathing." Kiro stared at her for a long moment. Then he turned and left the room without another word. Hana was alone again. But this time, she felt something different. Hope. 3 days passed. Hana stayed in her small room. Guards brought her food and water, but no one spoke to her. She did not know what was happening outside. She did not know if the cubs were safe. She did not know what Commander Kiro had decided. On the morning of the 4th day, the door opened. Sora stood in the doorway. Her face was different than before. There was something soft in her eyes. Something almost like respect. "The commander wants to see you," Sora said. In the main hall, Hana stood up. Her legs were stiff from sitting for so long. She followed Sora through the hallways, past the same gray walls and blue lights she had walked by so many times before. When they reached the main hall, Hana stopped in the doorway. The room was full. Every officer, every crew member, every cub on the ship was there. They stood in neat rows, facing the platform where Commander Kiro waited. Kiro saw her and raised his hand. "Lieutenant Hana, come forward." Hana walked through the crowd. She could feel hundreds of eyes on her. She could hear whispers as she passed. She kept her head high and her steps steady. She stopped in front of the platform and looked up at Kiro. He was wearing his formal white armor. His face was serious, but his eyes were different than before. The cold hardness was gone. In its place was something Hana could not quite understand. "Lieutenant Hana," Kiro began. His voice was loud enough for everyone to hear. "3 days ago, I discovered that you disobeyed my direct orders. You met with the cubs in secret. You taught them human customs. You introduced them to concepts that have no place in Velkari tradition." Hana nodded. "Yes, Commander. I did." 7. A murmur ran through the crowd. Some officers looked angry, others looked confused. Kiro raised his hand, and the room went silent. "For 3 days, I have thought about what to do. By our law, you should be punished. You should be sent back to your people in disgrace. Some of my officers wanted much worse." He paused and looked out at the crowd. "But I have also thought about what I saw in those recordings, and what I have seen in the days since the inspection." Kiro turned to look at the cubs. Talo and Nira stood in the front row. Their small faces were worried and hopeful at the same time. "My cubs have changed," Kiro said. "They follow orders, as they always have. They train hard, as they always have. But there is something different now. They talk to each other more. They help each other more. When one falls down, the others help them up instead of walking past. They have become a team, a true team. He turned back to Hana. I have commanded warriors for 40 years. I thought I knew everything about training soldiers. I thought discipline and fear were the only tools a leader needed. But you showed me something I had forgotten. Kiro stepped down from the platform. He stood in front of Hana, face to face. This time, he did not look down at her like she was small. He looked at her like an equal. You showed me that soldiers who care about each other fight harder than soldiers who only fear their commanders. You showed me that joy does not make warriors weak. It makes them strong. It gives them something to protect. Hana felt tears forming in her eyes. She blinked them away. Commander, Kiro held up his hand. Let me finish. He turned to face the crowd again. I have decided that Lieutenant Hana will not be punished. She will remain on this ship for the rest of her mission. And, he paused, she will be allowed to continue teaching the cubs. The room exploded with noise. Officers shouted in surprise. Cubs cheered. Hana stood frozen, unable to believe what she was hearing. Kiro raised his hand again. There will be conditions. The lessons will be supervised. They will be scheduled. They will not interfere with regular training. But they will happen. Because I have realized something important. He looked at Hana. Humans are not like us. You are small. You are weak. You do not have our strength or our speed or our long lives. But you have something else. Something we do not understand. Something that makes others want to follow you. Want to trust you. Want to be near you. He gestured to the cubs. My cubs showed their new moves to the whole ship. They could have kept them secret. They could have hidden what they learned. But they wanted to show everyone. They were proud. And when I asked them why, do you know what they said? Hana shook her head. They said they wanted to make you proud. Not me. Not their instructors. Not their parents. You. A human they had known for only 2 months. Kiro stepped closer. His voice was quieter now, but Hana could hear every word. Who is teaching them tricks? That is what I asked. But I was asking the wrong question. The real question is, how do you do it? How do humans win hearts so easily? How did you take my warriors in training and turn them into your friends? Hana smiled through her tears. We do not try to win hearts, Commander. We just care. We share what we have. We laugh with people. We cry with people. We make them feel like they matter. It is not a trick. It is just how humans are. Kiro studied her face. And if we learn to be like this, if we learn to care as you do, then you would have something more powerful than any weapon. You would have loyalty that cannot be broken, love that cannot be bought, trust that cannot be betrayed. Kiro was silent for a long moment. Then, slowly, he did something that shocked everyone in the room. He bowed, a Velkari commander, bowing to a human. It was something that had never happened in all of galactic history. Thank you, Lieutenant Hana, he said. You have taught me something that all my years of war never did. You have taught me that true strength comes from the heart, not from the fist. When he stood up straight again, his face had changed. The cold mask was gone. In its place was something that almost looked like warmth. The cubs will continue their training, he announced to the room. But from now on, there will also be time for play, time for games, time for laughter. We will learn from the humans. We will become stronger by learning to care. The cubs cheered. Even some of the officers nodded in agreement. The room felt different. Lighter, warmer. Talo broke away from his line and ran toward Hana. He crashed into her with a hug so strong it almost knocked her over. Nira followed, then more cubs, until Hana was surrounded by small gray arms holding on to her. Thank you, Teacher Hana, Talo whispered. Thank you for teaching us how to be happy. Hana hugged them back, tears flowing freely down her face. Thank you for teaching me what courage really means. You showed everyone who you really are. That was braver than any battle. Commander Kiro watched from the platform. For the first time in years, he smiled. Later that night, Hana stood in the observation deck. She looked out at the stars, just as she had done on her first night aboard the ship. But everything was different now. Footsteps approached behind her. She turned and saw Kiro standing in the doorway. "May I join you?" he asked. Hana nodded. "Of course, Commander." He walked over and stood beside her. They looked at the stars together in silence. "I have sent a report to my superiors," Kiro finally said. "I told them what happened. I told them what I learned." "What did they say?" "They were surprised, concerned, some were angry." He paused. "But some were curious. They want to know more about humans. They want to understand how you do what you do." Hana smiled. "And what will you tell them?" Kiro thought for a moment. "I will tell them the truth. Humans do not fight wars the way we do. You do not conquer with weapons alone. You conquer with kindness. You win battles we do not even know we are fighting." He turned to look at her. "My cubs showed their moves to you because they trusted you. They wanted you to see who they were becoming. That trust is more valuable than any territory or resource. And you earned it by simply being yourself." Hana nodded. "That is what we do, Commander. We connect. We share. We love. It is not a strategy. It is just who we are." Kiro looked back at the stars. The galaxy is full of species who think strength means force, who believe power means fear. But humans are different. You are proof that there is another way. He turned to leave, then stopped. "I was wrong about you, Lieutenant Hana. I was wrong about your people. I do not know what the future holds. But I know that the Valkyrie are better for having met you." He walked away, his footsteps fading into the distance. Hana stayed in the observation deck for a long time. She thought about Talo and Nira and all the other cubs. She thought about Commander Kiro and how much he had changed. She thought about humans and Valkyrie and all the species in the galaxy. Maybe they were not so different after all. Maybe everyone, everywhere, just wanted to feel happy, to feel loved, to feel like they mattered. And maybe, just maybe, that was the true strength of humanity. Not their weapons, or their ships, or their technology, but their hearts, their strange, stubborn, beautiful hearts. Hana smiled at the stars. The war was not over. The galaxy was still dangerous. But tonight, on this ship, in this moment, there was peace. There was friendship. There was hope, and that was enough.